on va terminer cette matinée avec un deuxième regard d'ailleurs. Après Bois-le-Duc, nous allons aller à Gand. Nous allons faire la connaissance de Michaël SAMYN et Auria Harvey, qui sont les deux cofondateurs du studio belge Tale of Tales. Alors les geeks connaissent certainement ce studio, réputé pour sa créativité, son inventivité, notamment inspiré par des contes comme Le Petit Chaperon Rouge ou La Belle au Bois dormant, et qui ont transformé des contes en jeux vidéo. Nos deux amis ont aussi fait des jeux vidéo sur commande ou en coopération avec des musées comme le musée d'art contemporain d'Anvers ou le SF MoMA. Et aujourd'hui, Tale of Tales prépare le lancement d'un nouveau projet qui s'appelle Cathedrals in the Clouds. Et donc je suis ravi que Michaël et Auria soient avec nous aujourd'hui. Et je vais laisser la parole à Michaël pour nous présenter Cathedrals in the Clouds.
Alors, je suis belge, mais je suis flamand, alors je ne parle pas bien le français. Donc, je vais continuer in English. So, yes, I am Michaël SAMYN. I'm an artist, and I have worked together with my partner, Auria Harvey, in the picture, for 17 years now. She's American and lived in New York when we met on the internet in 1999. It was a very romantic experience for us to meet in cyberspace, 1999. That sense of spiritual connection with a stranger has continued to influence our creations. Now we live together in the city of Ghent in Belgium, which is the former capital of the county of Flanders. Ghent is a beautiful medieval city that inspires our creativity, but not the projector, apparently. Can we get this back? Is this my fault? Is it the plug? I pull it out. Okay. That work? Oh, yes. Yeah. There we go. Okay, so this is our beautiful cathedral in Ghent, in Bavo, which is the home of probably the most beautiful object in the world, the Ghent altarpiece, created by the Flemish primitives, Van Eyck, in the 15th century. Our studio in Ghent is called Tale of Tales, after a 17th century collection of fairy tales by Giambattista Basile from Italy. And we make video games. As artists, we are drawn to digital media and computer technology for creation. But the art that we enjoy tends to be older. We like beauty in art and stories and feelings, figuration. Modern art often doesn't do it for us. We can't really enjoy the abstraction or the emptiness or the irony. Video games are a modern medium, but they often tell stories and depict places and people, and are very concerned with beauty. They're almost obsessed with realistic representation, almost as bad as the ancient master painters. So from our perspective, video games have a lot in common with the art that we enjoy. And we chose the medium in order to continue the traditions of art before modernism interrupted them. We work with the high technology of our time, just like the Flemish primitives did. And we love how technology allows us to embrace traditional artistic concepts, such as figuration, emotion, beauty. Thanks to video game technology, we can explore history, mythology, and religion. So I'll show you some of the work we've done before I continue talking about the current project. The Godlove Museum is a series of websites based on the first books of the Bible. our love felt so overpowering that we could only express it in biblical terms. But the Bible also allowed us to explore contemporary politics. There's sound to this, but you know. No, it's okay. It's not so important. Another project is called Eden.garden. It turns every web page that you enter into it into a beautiful real-time 3D paradise. So the code that comes in is translated into different objects that form a garden together. Uri and I scanned our bodies to play the roles of Adam and Eve, and our movements are derived from like typical video games. And the combination, the choreography is triggered by the text on the page or simply by typing on the keyboard when it's going on. Sadly, this piece does not work anymore, thanks to technological progress. The Endless Forest is a multiplayer online game where everyone plays a deer. It's set in a romantic landscape that contains references to myths and legends, but no story is told. And there's no real game objectives or rules. The players have to invent their own way of amusing themselves. The Endless Forest was originally created with the support of museums in Belgium and Luxembourg, and continued to develop through commissions of cultural institutions. Every time the work was exhibited, a new element was added to the forest, and we kind of like that spontaneous expansion of the project. This is Fatal. In Fatal, you play the spirit of John the Baptist in the aftermath of your execution. You can explore the still scene where Salome danced, the dance of the seven veils, one last night before you go to heaven. The game is very much inspired by Oscar Wilde's play about the subject. Oh, wait. Yeah. Well, that's a pity. It's very, yeah, you should. Ah, yeah. Wait, I'll slide it down a bit. It's in the machine itself. It's this thing. And now it's broken completely. Oh no, it's going. Okay, so it'll start over. I won't touch it anymore. So just like it's not playing now at the moment. Oh great. Switch to the next one. Bientôt l'été is a tribute to a French writer you probably all know, Marguerite Duras. It's kind of a game within a game, since you play as an astronaut who visits a holodeck on a spacecraft somewhere, and that holodeck runs a simulation of a French coastline. So as you walk along the beach, the waves bring in quotes taken from novels by Michaël Duras, and you collect these words to use in a conversation later in a cafe on the boardwalk. When you close your eyes like this, you see cyberspace, so you see sort of the reality behind the simulation. It's sort of, again, a game about feeling connected, even when you're far apart. So now we come to our current project. We've just started on Cathedral in the Clouds. It's a big project, and I won't be able to show you any finished work. I'll just talk about where the idea came from and what we intend to create ultimately. Yeah, starting with the origin. Oh, yeah. As I mentioned before, we have always deeply enjoyed old art much more than modern art. And a lot of those old paintings and sculptures depict religious themes and characters. That is part of why they are so moving to us. The saints in the pictures are kind of superheroes. We look up to them, we admire them, and they help us understand and deal with our lives. But in spite of our love for religious art, we are not religious ourselves. We've been brought up by modern parents who believe there is no God, or who want us to invent something to believe in for ourselves. So, like most of our contemporaries, we are spiritual idiots. But we're eager to learn. I think we confuse beauty and God. Or maybe beauty and God are one and the same thing. Maybe beauty is just another word for God, or the experience of beauty is a spiritual experience. With Cathedral in the Clouds, we want to create opportunities for contemplation. The old art that we love helps us to contemplate our existence on a cosmic scale. It makes us feel connected to other people, even people that have died a long time ago. But we have a feeling that a lot of people now don't really experience those things with old art. So we would like to create something that people today can connect to more easily, without betraying what it's all about for us. Cathedral in the Clouds is still about encouraging kindness and patience, just like the old art does, and offering opportunity for gratitude and even worship. It's about feeling rooted in place and in time, and giving people a more conscious awareness of their existence in the cosmos. People today who desire such experiences often turn to, at least over here, there the picture goes again. Did I touch it? I didn't touch it. That worked before. I didn't. You're right. Almost. Yeah, there you go. They often turn to sort of foreign religious experiences of spirituality, probably because our own religion, Christianity, is kind of tainted by history, and we feel uncomfortable with it. But I feel Christianity offers all the spirituality we need. It's part of our Western culture, and it's kind of foolish to ignore it. Even if we don't believe in gods, I think we could treat Christian mythology in the same way as we treat Greco-Roman mythology, as inspiring stories with great symbolic value and interesting metaphors. A project like Cathedral in the Clouds is a great opportunity for us to explore these topics that we are so interested in more deeply. So we're visiting cathedrals and museums, this one too, and reading books and so on, doing little tours. Since our studio is in Belgium, we have easy access to great works of art. Many of the great masterpieces of architecture and sculpture and painting can be found in Belgium or in neighboring countries like France. So that's where that came from now. Yeah, what we ultimately will be making, two things, in fact. The core of the project is a series of digital depictions of saints, mostly, that will be created for many different platforms, like desktop laptops, tablets, smartphones, webs, and we're also considering video and print. And next to the different platforms, we also want to be able to display all the pictures together. And for that, we're building a cathedral in virtual reality, in VR. Both aspects of the project are endless. Like there's an endless amount of dioramas that we want to create, an endless amount of saints that we can deal with. And the cathedral, much like old Gothic cathedrals, just can expand all the time and get new parts, especially since we're working in virtual space. There's no limit. So first the dioramas. That's sort of a very, very early sketch of something. So basically there are computer programs that will be available for multiple platforms. The general idea is to bring the contemplative experience of the museum or the church into the intimacy of the home, so you can have similar aesthetic experience at home. It's a bit like what people used to make, like devotional cabinets or portable altars. Sacred objects that you can just take with you and close it up and take it with you. And when you feel like, you feel need a moment of contemplation, you open it up. We want to make something like that, but digitally. So those things are a bit like home editions of the large triptychs that you find in churches and museums. And just like these, our dioramas will show a scene around one central character, a saint or an angel, or like the Virgin Mary or Jesus Christ himself. And that character is life-size, like my size, and since the screen of your laptop or tablet is smaller, you have to sort of scroll around to find the entire image. And that's the only interaction that will take place. In many dioramas, however, a dramatic change will happen, a change that sort of helps explain the significance of the scenes. We don't consider the characters in our scene to be really alive. Even though they may be moving, it's important that they remain synthetic. We think of them as virtual statues. And we're very inspired by the style of medieval sculpture. This just does that spontaneously. No, didn't work. Oh, it did. These polychromatic sculptures, but also African sculpture, and even some modernists like Brancusi are very interesting to us because we want to move away from the sort of photographic realism that is common in video games towards a more symbolic representation of a reality that you can't really see anyway. The first diorama we want to create is about the first woman on Earth, Eve, and her confrontation with the snake and the apple. In our diorama, Eve will be lying in a horizontal box that gets filled up with snakes more and more. That's sort of the dramatic change. But she won't really respond to that. She's a statue. She's purely symbolic. But for us, it's still very important that the images that we create run in real time on a processor of the computer, so that they're not just pictures, still pictures, because that's where the art happens to us. Like, I never have a very deep aesthetic experience with a reproduction of a painting, for instance. I have to be with the real work, with the object. Then the magic happens, and then I can be really moved. So with analog art, the art object exists in space, and you have to share the same space to have the real experience. For digital art, I believe that the art object exists in time, and so you have to sort of share the time with the work of art, and that's why it's important that it's not a frozen image, but a living program that's running. Another diorama that we're looking forward to is the Virgin and Child, also a typical scene. As in some paintings, we want to have the baby Jesus sort of hold the breast instead of drinking from it, and maybe squeezing a bit so there's milk coming out. Like, it's subtle animations like this that we hope that will make the spectator aware of the live character of the presentations, like milk flowing, wind blowing, light shifting. Some of these can happen because of user input. Maybe you can move some things around, or the light changes depending on what comes in through the camera of the device. And there's like an endless stream of dioramas we want to make. So yeah, next to all these different platforms that we want to make the dioramas for, the cathedral where we are also going to show them is a virtual reality thing. That's me looking silly. But it's a good illustration because we chose VR technology for this project precisely because it is inaccessible. The hardware to experience 3D VR simulations is expensive. It's also just a very, very nerdy, very uncool thing to do, to put this thing on your head. It completely isolates you from your environment, and it messes up your hair. So a sort of pilgrimage will be needed to see our cathedral. Just like the cathedrals in the Gothic era were built as pilgrimage destinations or stops on the road to the big pilgrimage of Compostela. Even though we do not intend to simply build a replica of a Gothic church in 3D, we're very interested in the construction and design of Gothic buildings. We're fascinated by the way in which these complex, intricate structures are actually composed through kind of simple geometric principles, and how the design of these churches forms a connection between earth and heaven, as expressed in this sort of very simple schematic. It's the square or rectangular floor plan symbolizes the earth, and then while you go up to the vaults or domed, that symbolize heaven. The circle symbolizes heaven. And most Gothic cathedrals are built with the choir in the east. I'll try this again. Yes, fantastic. So the choir is in the east, and where the sun rises, and the main entrance is in the west, where the sun sets. And those cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, form a cross that connects very nicely with the cross that Jesus Christ was crucified on. 3D space in the computer is also organized along a cross, a three-dimensional axis that represents width, height, and depth. So for us, it sort of feels like modeling in 3D is like modeling in a sacred space. Even though our cathedral will probably not look like a real building, we definitely want to use elements from Gothic architecture. We hope to recreate the feeling of entering a cathedral in 3D, like from the confusing noise outside to the sort of silent clarity inside. But since in virtual reality we are not bound by physical forces such as gravity, we can also add theatrical elements that would not be possible in real space, although the Baroque sculptures got very close to denying the forces of nature too. In a way though, our cathedral only exists in the imagination. That's one reason why we call it in the clouds. Virtual reality is sort of the clouds. Of course, the cloud is a new name for what we used to call cyberspace. And our cathedral is a tribute to at least how we used to feel about cyberspace. Back in the 90s, we thought of the internet as a place, a sort of other planet almost, where different rules applied. It was very romantic. Sometimes it felt a bit like the afterlife or like eternity. So from our early experiences on, we've connected with the digital as something spiritual almost. And it makes sense because both are not physical, not corporeal, but sort of ethereal. And to close off, I wanted to mention that Cathedral in the Clouds is a non-commercial project, which is sort of a first for us after a long time releasing games commercially. We're funding it through the production of the project through many means, like crowdsourcing. We did a campaign in November on Kickstarter, which luckily worked, so we could get started. And then there's other ways, like we're trying to get subsidies, haven't been lucky so far. But we're accepting donations via whatever. And oh yeah, we also, like with the Endless Forest, we want to do commissions so that people can become, like we work together with people to make an extension to the cathedral, much like they used to do. Like you still see separate chapels in cathedrals, and so it becomes a collaborative project, and it's kind of very interesting to us. Co-productions with museums are also interesting to us. Patronage, we have Patreon pages and people sort of help us create by monthly contributions. For us it's very important that this is a non-commercial project to really not have to, we want to focus on creating an object that we think deserves to exist and not about, thinking about how many people will really like it or something. So that's it. Hey, that's more or less 20 minutes. I hope I was able to sort of illustrate the project and share a passion and desire for the subject matter. And maybe next time I can actually show what we make. Keep an eye on websites, Twitter, Tumblr. Email us if you like. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. You were on time. Great. So we have time. We have time for some questions. I have a first question. You say that you want to work with museums,
yes, we have
cooperation, co-production, and
we
so
have
on.
done that a little bit in the past, and it's very interesting to us. I mean, it started because as digital artists, museums were interested in showing our work, and a lot of our colleagues sort of reverted the sort of said, yes, okay, I want, it's okay, you don't have to show. They of course want to show in the museum, but their work is digital, so it doesn't really fit. So often they would make something for the museum that fits in the museum. And we sort of reverted the thing. We said, we'll make something in our game that sort of contemplates the situation of the museum. And so that's what we did in the Endless Forest. Very many things were added that were linked to the museum. And the cool thing is that after the exhibition or event, that thing continues to exist and people continue to interact with it. So we want to do something similar.
And when you work in the past with, so you work with SF MoMA and with Antwerp Museum, it was, what kind of cooperation were they financing you? Were there,
SF MoMA was pure commission.
Okay, pure commission.
They just said, make something. We have this exhibition, an online exhibition, which was very new at the time. It was 2001. Yeah, well, it started as a commission too. Yes, there was sort of an interesting aspect also connected to the Endless Forest, where it started as a commission, but then since it was a multiplayer game, we also needed a server. And the museum hosted the server for years. Okay. Yeah. And that's very useful for us as digital artists
so it's
to have
in
that.
kind cooperation. And so let's come back to the Cathedral in the Clouds. You will, there are two ideas, two dimensions, the artworks and the cathedral itself. Yeah. For the artworks, I imagine that you will have, or you will be open to work with museums collection.
Well, that's not even necessary. I mean, of course we want to, because we really love that work and we want to be able to explore it. But we do want, we will invent our own scenes. I mean, they are based.
So you don't need the original painting necessary?
No, they're not replicas at all. They're completely original works, but very much inspired by the traditional work.
And so we are in the, your first intention is to be inspired by the Flemish art.
Yeah, that's kind of nice since we are in Flanders, but it's important for us too because they were very early users of this particular technique of painting, and so we feel an affinity since we are early users of a new technology for depiction. So that's kind of interesting to us, and also we find that it's an interesting way of dealing with. I didn't really go into that, but it's very important for us to stay away from photography and to create images sort of out of nothing because of their symbolic value. We don't make pictures of existing people. They're sort of more symbols. They're more elevated. And I find that very much in Flemish primitives and general Renaissance art. Less so in Baroque, for instance.
So there are some Flanders primitive artworks, for example, here in this museum or in other
we'll sneak out of the conference
area,
in a moment.
in Lille area or north. For example, if you are very inspired by one of the artworks of the Palais des Beaux-Arts of Lille, what kind of work you can do with the Palais des Beaux-Arts? What kind of cooperation you can on a specific artwork?
Well, I have no idea really, because we don't want to work with the existing works directly. So it's more like I mean, I hate to sort of be negative, but it's kind of contradicting a lot of things that were talked about before. We don't want to sort of pretend that art is fun and that you can just run around and pretend that it's also playful. On the contrary, we sort of want to try to help people understand the very, very seriousness of this work because we find that deeply enjoyable. I mean, we are terribly moved by a lot of these artworks. And it's a shame that people can't do that. And maybe we hope in some way that our work can help people sort of understand the real gravity of this work, the importance of it for contemplation, etc.
But you don't play with artwork themselves, but you imagine a playful approach to the artwork, or way of reaching this artwork.
It's playful in the sense that all art is playful, in the sense that you have to engage with the artwork, but I feel you have to engage with it on sort of what the artwork offers you. If the artwork is about a woman holding her son who just died from an execution, it's not like, oh, happy joy, there's like a little fly on screen or something.
Is there some questions for Michael or for Aurea?
I had a question. Here.
Oh, yes.
I have a question for you about just what you were talking about the educational component. So how would you integrate educational content into something like that if it's not based on an actual painting, an actual work of art?
I think by somehow trying to point to the story, but maybe not so much. I don't know. I mean, maybe not so much in the actual scene. Maybe I would prefer to really work with sort of text. Like you sometimes have paintings that have like a little text underneath, or it's like panels that open and there's a. I'm not afraid of just really explaining things to people because it really helps to enjoy the art if you know what the characters represent. Not necessarily an interpretation, but just the story. Often it's a lot of paintings seem very elaborate in what they're telling, but what they're based on is often like 2 or 3 lines from the Bible. It's very easy to sort of share that. But if you don't know that, you're kind of lost, I think.
Would there be an integration in religious texts like the Bible or...
What do you mean?
Would there be, like with the Marguerite Duras
would
game,
we show the texts in the piece?
Would you show religious text as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, because they're often very beautiful as well.
Another question for Michael? Yeah.
Hello, I'm Karin Grootbram. I wanted to ask how the user can move in the cathedral. Will he be given a plan? Is he able to, or will he know at the beginning what to expect, or is he just entering the cathedral and then discovering the space a little bit by moving through it?
That's actually a bit of a tricky question because in VR, moving is complicated because it's very easy to make people sick in VR. So we will definitely have a mode where you actually don't move, when you just jump from one thing to another, because a lot of people are very sensitive to the motion. So that's an important thing. But other than that, the thing that we're thinking of now is actually that the motion itself will sort of create the cathedral. I mean, we're in cyberspace. It's not, we don't pretend that this is a fixed stone building. It's light floating in the air. So we're even thinking of a multiplayer aspect where the more people there are, sort of the more cathedral you get to see. So that's sort of what we're playing with now. So, while at the same time, we do want to create that feeling of sort of, when you enter a church, you sort of, it's silent and you sort of feel grounded in it. So it's not a wild ride in a way. It's definitely contemplation. It's silence. It's all.
So you mentioned multiplayers. Does it mean that it's a kind of a second life, or where you can be connected to other people who are visiting the cathedral at the same time?
Well, it's kind of like going to a mass service on Sunday. I mean, that's the goal. The goal is to recreate some of that experience of feeling part of a community while not really knowing the other people, and yet sort of feeling that being that you're all equal in this space and that you're together making something beautiful, experiencing something.
But you will be able to connect each other?
I'm not sure. That might ruin things. Maybe in certain moments, like in our services in Ghent, we have this moment, I think they do that also too, where people shake hands with each other. But that's only one moment in the church where you sort of wish each other peace. So I think that's an important part too of sort of the solemn experience, that there is ritual involved, that is sort of like, it's not, it can't be a completely free environment.
I have a question, another question about virtual reality. You will be using Oculus Rift, who has a very low reach today because cost of equipment and so on. Will you offer the same experience, for example, on cardboard or another immersive tool to expand the reach?
We don't need to
Cathedral?
expand it. You have to take the pilgrimage.
Yeah, but it's very expensive to have to get the
Yes,
Oculus,
and
it's
so
very-
you go to a place where they show it or something.
Okay,
We
okay.
really want it to be like almost an imaginary place, almost a place that you've heard of, but yeah, you've never seen. It's kind of on purpose. that we use
exclusive kind of exclusive
VR. Yeah,
access.
absolutely. Yes.
Uh,
As opposed to the dioramas, which we want to be widely
Okay,
available.
yeah. Last question, maybe? Dernière question avant le déjeuner? Là, everybody is starving.
Feel
now.
free to email or anything.
And you stay for the lunch.
Yeah.
We'll be around. Okay, so I would like to thank you, Michael. I won't thank your computer, but I thank you.
Hey, it's her computer.
Oh là 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 là. So I would like to, je voudrais remercier tous les intervenants de ce matin, avec lesquels on a appris plein de choses, vous dire qu'on va reprendre les hostilités à 14h30 précises, comme ce matin on a commencé à 9h30 précises. Les personnes qui n'auraient pas apporté leur présentation cet après-midi, les intervenants, merci de nous les apporter avant le déjeuner et non pas après. Donc on va rester un quart d'heure ici. La salle va être fermée vers 13h15. Donc vous pourrez laisser vos affaires, mais elle rouvrira qu'à 14h15. Donc n'oubliez rien. N'oubliez pas votre badge, parce que votre badge est nécessaire, et surtout le petit autocollant sur le badge qui va vous donner accès à l'espace déjeuner démonstration. Et Florence, pendant la pause déjeuner, on va avoir 1h30 pour déjeuner, et on va vous proposer des visites guidées du musée. Florence.
Oui, rapidement, bonjour à tous et à tous. C'est l'appel du ventre, je sais bien, c'est irrésistible, mais juste une petite annonce à vous faire. Nous organisons des visites guidées de l'Open Museum en début de déjeuner. 3 membres de notre service des publics, donc Juliette, Céline et Ingrid, vous convient à découvrir le 3e Open Museum du musée. C'est pour nous plus qu'une expérimentation de démocratisation culturelle. L'invité de cette saison, 3e édition, c'est le dessinateur Zepp, le plus grand vendeur de BD en France aujourd'hui, qui a investi le musée. On souhaitait aussi pouvoir vous l'offrir aujourd'hui, un mardi de fermeture. Donc si vous le souhaitez, manifestez-vous auprès des 3 guides dans l'atrium du musée. Et ce serait épatant en début de pause. Voilà, début de pause. Ou en fonction des disponibilités, on va réajuster si besoin. Voilà.
Florence, peut-être qu'on peut peut-être se dire qu'on le fait à 1h20 pour que les personnes aient le temps de manger, grignoter quelque chose avant de faire la visite, parce qu'autrement je pense qu'on ne va pas les récupérer en entier. 1h20 ou 1h25.
Voilà, 13h20, 13h25 pour ceux qui sont invités et intéressés par ZEP. Rendez-vous dans l'atrium. Bonne démonstration et bon appétit. Oui.